Live. And thank you very much for joining me. Remember, our brunch time is also an open mic where you can phone in anytime, right? Either to contribute to what we are talking about or something else that you've always wanted to share, right? So after reading the caption of the broadcast, read the description of the broadcast as well. Then like it. Right. Share it. Invite your friends, invite your not so friendly friends, and tell them, well, it is another brunch time. This time, we are looking into the national or annual convention of the Nigerian Bar Association. So, Nigerian Bar Association is pretty much like the Association of Nigerian Lawyers, both old, new, young, old, and all that. And yeah, so they are supposed to be the law officers in Nigeria, those who are supposed to be the champions of the rule of law. But unfortunately, the majority of their members are very much key partners in the legalization of corruption, institutionalized corruption in Nigeria, and how criminals, especially the political criminals in Nigeria, have been able to get away with all of their crimes. So they called a conference that they themselves felt like it was time to reflect on how kind of like low the Nigerian judiciary has become, how themselves and their members have corrupted the judiciary or helped the judiciary's corruption to become institutionalized. In the process, justice became a commodity that anyone with money could just purchase in Nigeria. No thanks to these lawyers too. Because if you remember, when Bokuwari, that Daura lifeless mannequin, when he was asked for his academic qualification, which ordinarily would have disqualified him from even vying for the position of the presidency of that contraption, it was the lawyers. 42 sons, senior advocate of New Sons, assembled for Bokuwari to defend the NEPA certificate, and they won. Eventually, they proved to all of us that you may be requiring an educated person with proven certificates or certification before you can employ them into your own firm or business, right? But to become the president of Nigeria, all it requires is just your primary success certificate. At most, your secondary school certificate. Your secondary school certificate. But a lot of you have really invested so much in your academic pursuits, and still you couldn't secure any real good job simply because you still probably don't have enough that they are looking for. But to become the president or the governor in Nigeria, you don't need any university or any degree or anything. With your primary success certificate, you can vie to become president of Nigeria, and they'll give you the #1 job. So Bokuwari had no secondary school certificate at all. They manufactured one for him, no thanks to these lawyers, of course. He had the power, so they couldn't really do anything. Rather, they defended it. When Tifnumbu's drug case popped up in 1999, as early as the year 2000, Chief or late Chief Gani Fawayimi was on Tifnumbu. He had all the evidence, his drug dealings, his Chicago State, University of Chicago, Chicago State University, because some of you might have forgotten, right? Tifnumbu is claiming Chicago State University today. In 1999, Tifnumbu actually submitted a fake result that said he went to University of Chicago, which was a lie. It was discovered by Chief Gani Fawayimi. He pursued Tifnumbu but guess those who defended him? Lawyers. Femi Falana, Yeah, the Sandpaper Falana. So he was the chief defender of Tifnubu at the time. Not only did he manage to get Tifnubu out of the trouble, he was able to convince Tifnubu that the only way to get out of the trouble was to get the State House of Assembly on his side. Lawyers. That Tifnubu is your president today. And when his own drug case finally pops up at the national level, who are those who defended him? Lawyers. One of them even came out and said, the case of him forfeiting money for drug dealing in America is now over 10 years. That means the statute of limitation, the statute of something, has barred Nigeria from prosecuting Tifnumbu or even questioning him on his drug dealing, heroin trafficking in America. Lawyers in Nigeria did that. They stood in their courts, in their Supreme Court. They defended all kinds of criminals. Yaya Bello is walking about today. Do you know who got him out? Lawyers. Most of them were in that conference too. So then they had the Sultan of Sokoto there too, who also kind of backed Julius Malema, their guest speaker. They invited him from South Africa. You know Julius. So the Sultan of Sokoto categorically told them that except if anybody is deceiving himself, which many are actually deceiving themselves. The Sultan of Sokoto said, justice in Nigeria is now purchasable, where rich criminals are walking free and the poor criminals are doing time, jail time. That the only people who are supposed to help or fight any form of lawlessness in this field, they are supposed to be the lawyers. Anyway, the president of Nigerian Bar Association, the new one, the current one, seems to be trying his best to prove that his own leadership is not going to be in bed with, dictators and lawbreakers somehow. Because, you know what, this their conference was supposed to be held in Port Harcourt in Rivers State, and then Tifnumbu declared state of emergency. Fortunately, they themselves are not really clean, as it is alleged that Fulbara actually paid them billions of naira. That was with the weakest allegation. He gave billions of naira to NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, in order to bring the hosting of their conference to Port Harcourt. Well, they didn't deny it. They said, yeah, he didn't give the money to any individual. He gave it to the Nigerian Bar Association, right? So they didn't do anything wrong. Wirewike demanded that they refunded the money. They said no. So they didn't. But in protest against Tifnumbu's decision of removing a democratically elected governor by his suspension, right? So in their protest, they took it to Enugu, where everything now took place yesterday. So the president told everyone that, well, it is just so you know that they are not in bed with lawbreakers, and so on and so on and so on. Sultan spoke, Julius spoke, and their message seems to be about the burdens the leadership have brought upon Africa, Africans, Nigeria, Nigerians, where politically exposed people are more interested in their own affair, and they will do anything to protect that, including playing to the gallery for the imperialist. That's how Julius Malema put it. For those who know Julius Malema very well, right? It's kind of like a one African, a united African with one president, one currency, and administrative blocks scattered all over the place. A very united, strong Africa. There's so many. Others are like, before you get to the point of having one president in Africa, how about you make movement for Africans within Africa easier? Another, colonial drawn borders that has put a limitation to Africans within Africa, that it is actually easier, right, for a Westerner from outside Africa to tour Africa than it is for an African or Africans to tour African countries. So many questions, many stuff going on there, right? So I am going to share some of their thoughts with you, with us. Then I'll take calls at some point, as we normally do, right? So let's go to that their Enugu conference. Start with this.
When we reached out to Julius Malema to present this keynote speech, he made only two requests. One is that we must book an appointment for him to visit President Olusegun Obasanjo to convey the gratitude of South Africans to him for the assistance given to them during the apartheid regime. He also made a second request that we should arrange for him to pay a visit to the family of late Ken Saro-Wiwa to enable him pay his last respects to the memory of Ken Saro-Wiwa. When we reach
made those requests. Now we're coming to the xenophobia part later. All right. So, and there are a few others who also made some introductory statements and their conference highlighted. Okay. Then we'll listen to that long speech of Malema himself, and then as well as that of the Sultan of Sokoto as well. And you can hear your own view, not just in the comments. You can pick up the phone, right? Let's go back in there. Here.
This conference was originally slated for Port Harcourt. As at September last year, it was known that the conference would be hosted in Port Harcourt. However, it was shifted to Enugu in April this year. Between April and now is 4 months. In 4 months, we have done what others usually do in 12 months. We thank our governor, Mr. Mba, who more or less built this international conference center within 1 year and 8 months of his becoming the governor. We would not have been here but for this international conference center, which is the best in the country. We thank President Afam Osigwe for the courage in appointing Enugu the host of the conference. The decision of the president of the NBA to move the conference from Port Harcourt to Enugu in the face of the egregious decision to appoint a military administrator of Rivers State will go down as one of the most courageous decisions by a president of the NBA.
Mr. President's leadership has made members of the Nigerian Bar Association heroes of the rule of law and democracy in Nigeria. If it was business as usual, this conference would not hold in Enugu. In bringing the annual general conference to Enugu 22 years since the last one held in 2003, the leadership of the bar and the annual general conference planning committee wrote, and I quote, "Consequently, and in alignment with the overwhelming position of NEC and the broader AGC, that is the broader membership, we are compelled to relocate the 2025 annual general conference to a state where constitutional democracy remains intact." End of quote. The Nigerian Bar Association is indeed standing out and standing tall. No less worthy of praise is our pace-setting governor, His Excellency Dr. Peter Ndubisi, who has not only made it possible for democracy and the rule of law to flourish in Enugu State, but has made Enugu the...
Crazy stuff, right? And guess what? Mba, that is taking the praise or the praises, will grab the microphone and then transfer the entire praises they are giving to him, democratic or developmental, and he will give everything to Tifnumbu. So I want to thank everybody here, especially I want to thank Mr. President for allowing democracy to work in Enugu. It's not a real place. Now here is the Sultan of Sokoto, who told his gathering, what he himself observed about the rule of law in Nigeria, justice system. And you all know that. Obviously, you probably won't get anything from it, right? So there are those who are currently, debating why the Sultan of Sokoto was called in as the royal father of the day in the eastern Nigeria, when the Obi, I think it's Obi of Onitsha, is the, is the chair of the southeast traditional rulers or something. So people are having that convo on the side. Well, I heard that. Here, the Sultan himself on the rule of law in that contraption. Listen.
This is spot on. Today, justice is increasingly becoming purchasable commodity, and the poor are becoming victims of miscarriage of justice, while the rich commit all matters of crime and walk the streets scot-free. That by this theme, you are resolving to stand out and tall on the scale of justice is certainly highly commendable. In other words, you are resolving to uphold the highest principles of the rule of law, precisely to ensure that everyone, including those in power, are subject to and accountable under the law, and that the law is applied fairly and equally, so that no one operates above the law. If you are able to do this, you would have addressed the core of the crisis of governance in this. This is...
And he's not lying. It is the truth. If you want progress as a country, you must prioritize rule of law. Rule of law is what checkmates everyone. Do you understand? Rule of law is the reason why, whether you are rich or poor, once you commit a crime, you go to jail. Now, if you see a rich man, a powerful man that is being sent to jail for what is just done, or what he did, right? And you want to commit that same crime, you obviously know that you are going to jail too. So you're not going to feel bad when a judge says, I am sentencing you to 10 years imprisonment. In fact, being in position of authority, in position of a privilege, should warrant even more like punishment when they break the law. So that gives the society the clarity to say, hey, do everything according to the law, you are fine. Or if you transgress against the law, this is what will happen. It doesn't matter who you are. Now, such society will have what is called orderliness. And it doesn't matter, even within that same society, you're going to have people who are going to want to try to usurp that power, or try to kind of like, scheme around it. But since it is a tight-proof system, they will get caught. And once they are caught, they go to jail. But that's not Nigeria. You know that. It didn't start today. It's just that some of us were kids decades ago. We are now grown adults. Many of us are just wondering, like, is this actually how you guys who are older than us? Is this how it was when you were also, so curious? Makes us more like concluded that a society that is so lawless and some individuals are above the law is a failed society. If it hasn't failed already, well, it's got all the potentials to fail. And that's what the contraption is. Now, to Malema himself. Julius Malema is also hated by his fellow Black South Africans, by the way, just so you know, because he is considered as a simp for foreigners. They have a group called the Dudula movement, or Dudula something. They are vigilantes. They go about harassing, their fellow Africans, mostly in their country, and they blame them for all their woes. Oh, these guys comes into our country, they bring in drugs, they do prostitution, they traffic our girls, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, South Africa is also a partly broken system too, just so you know, okay? So in that same broken system, those who are supposed to look inward, look at themselves, ask questions from their or hold their own leaders responsible, they put the blames on immigrants, this time their fellow Africans, to even make it worse. I'm not saying that there are no foreigners in South Africa who are committing crimes. So no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that to an average South African, they are not as enraged as they are towards their fellow Africans, non-South Africans. And I'm talking about a